My name's Shay. If I haven't met you before, nice to meet you. I'm glad you're here. I've been trying to work in the routine here with Jared and Chris. I've been working with Jared and Chris for uh, over almost 7 years now. That's pretty crazy. I didn't realize. Yeah, since 2018, so 6 years. And it's all really been with I'm Recovery, and so I'm really proud of what we do here and how we show up and our what we endeavor to be about. And so this is probably my favorite part of working in the recovery space as a coach has been working with families. I love connecting the family and the person or the people so that they can find a way to experience something different. And attempt to dare to do great together again. I'm gonna go ahead and I have this slide up here for a second. I'd like to do a little check-in, I guess. If there's something you'd like to share about yourself, or if you don't know quite what to share, I just put a visual here of some of these trees and these black and white. Maybe if you've been interested in sharing, check in what kind of emotions this brings up, or what kind of thoughts or feelings come up looking at this screen with three kind of Ansel Adams-esque tree pictures. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. The pictures remind me of like I'm driving home right now and it's kind of similar where it's like dark but like some objects like the trees are vibrant still and um at night there's like a it just makes me feel like peaceful right now. Like everything's calming down and uh yeah, just kind of the end of the day, calm.
Brilliant. Thanks, Tyson.
You're
Tyson
welcome.
has worked with I'm Recovery for years as well. Not only from this side as a coach and as a house manager and running groups, but also on the receiving end of, coming in and reinventing himself as well through the program and bringing as many people along as he can in the process, as well as his burgeoning family. So great to have you, Tyson.
Thanks, bro.
Let's see, Pachonis or the Rosses? Who wants to go next?
It just reminds me of just life, that however much life we have left, it's kind of a symbol of life and hope for however many remaining years we have left and our loved
That's
ones.
that's awesome, bro. It's a good one.
When you have it more seasons under your belt than you did when you were younger, you start seeing things in seasons and be aware of what you have and kind of bumping up against that. There's a limit, when you've got more seasons ahead of you or behind you than ahead of you, it just has definitely changed your perspective, doesn't it? All right. And how about you, Miss Pachoni?
Um, so I see more of the first picture is where it's a dark sky, and then the second picture, more light is coming in, and then the third picture is even more light. So it's maybe the transformation from
Hmm.
dark,
In like a clockwise fashion, starting with the left or starting here at the top right?
starting at the big picture on the left
Yeah.
and then going around.
They've
So
always got that sun coming from a different perspective of the sky as well, huh?
so just kind of the transformation maybe that someone could be going from dark to light.
I
Would
love
you
that. That's good.
would you say that you feel hopeful
Yes, cautious, but
with an asterisk? Okay, we'll take it. All right, let's go, Mr. Ross. You up for it?
Yeah, kind of see it in multiple different ways. The big one, the first one, could possibly I don't know. I see it as like someone that is possibly like struggling and they feel like they're in the dark, like that shadow, that tree
Mm.
looks super dark. And then, and they don't know where to go. Like all the leaves have fallen off, all this stuff. Um, and then the second one, that on the right, the top one, it's almost like that couple, like where the one is still dark and the other one has a light shine on them, but like the darkness kind of overshadows and overpowers that light. And so that's kind of like the heaviness of what whoever's going through the addiction or anything like that is just bringing into the relationship. And then the bottom one, it's still the person, like the family at home kind of thing that's kind of left. Like it seems a little more peaceful, but yet it still has the shadow underneath it. It's still coming up, kind of biting them from behind kind of thing. And so, yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing from my perspective.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Ms. Brown, are you want to check in?
Yeah, absolutely. So my first thought was seasons. I like to think of looking at different seasons in my life. The darkness was a season. I lived through it for a season. The light underneath the tree is hope coming through, working its way up. And then my next thought, once I saw the two trees together at the very top right, was perspective. Seeing the one underneath, you can see more light in that one, but it's really just the perspective and the view of the tree and how we look at things.
Wonderful. As you're describing your perspective there, I kind of realized that this in the upper right hand corner, it's almost like there's a cloud over part of this tree because the sun's coming from the same angle, right? But it's almost like there's that cloud that's making that dark, you know, part of the tree look like it's darkened, right? The trunk and those branches looking like they're maybe sick or full of something, like in Moana, that sickness, right, that goes up through the trees or whatever. That's beautiful. Thank you. I I think I chose this partly because there's three pictures and there's three topics I want to hit. In fact, I think what I'll do next is I'll show you all my slides so you know where we're going to go. And that way we can spend the time on the topics that interest you guys the most instead of me getting through the first two slides and then we have 10 minutes and I got to rush through the last three. But I'm going to keep it pretty tight and on point. But I said the three. I think I did the black and white because I think the trust issue and building that and restoring confidence, it can really feel like it's hard to hold that space for that, some trust in some things, but lack of trust or, destroyed trust on other things and trying to find, because at some point, like this is just like a filter or a film. There's really color behind this. And maybe as we talk today, we can learn how some of the black and white can turn into a little bit more of a prism where we're getting more color or more nuance, which really creates lots of opportunity for us in our work that we do, either ourselves or with our person, or that we need to ask our person to do or our people. Very cool. All right, let me show you kind of what I've got lined up, and then you tell me what kind of interests you the most. The main thrust here is restoring and rebuilding trust. I want to understand what trust means because sometimes words matter, and in relationships that you've had for a little bit of time, son, daughter, mother, father, spouse, second spouse, 10 years, there's time. Sometimes there's a communication, like the words that are used, they're not aligning, and so there's this fundamental misunderstanding that keeps getting people ensnared in like a toxic dialogue. And what I mean by that, for example, is a good example would be how when I ask my spouse for downtime or alone time, what I really mean is I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want to be around anybody. I want to just go dark. And what that means is I need space. What it comes across to her is I'm rejecting her bids of affection or offers to connect with me. And so I have trouble asking for it because it's interpreted as I'm rejecting. And what I need is just that withdrawal. I need to kind of go to that dark space intentionally. And so when we come together and define, like, hey, when I say I don't need to go dark, this is what it means. And we define what the term means. So when we talk and my wife says, hey, you're not helping me, I understand what she means when she says you're not helping me. Because sometimes it's around the dishes going to be mean one thing. If it's around, the yard work or the honeydew list is going to be just something different, right? So defining terms is a really great place to go to clean up language that's causing this constant. You find yourself in these dialogue loops that are unhealthy or unproductive over and over again. Just like, then you're banging up against this misunderstanding wall constantly. Defining what trust means or what that means or the words, it's really valuable for relationships that are in it for the long haul, long term. A question here is, what's a workable way that trust is shown to you? And I'm really big on, as a coach, I want your life to work for you. So my main focus and my effort, my skill is being able to identify things to do or stop doing, not necessarily the whys or the hows. So when I say you want your life to work, well, that's why I use that word workable. Is it working for you? Does the way we establish trust or forgiveness or repentance or change, is it working? What is the path for us to walk back in trust with you? I've learned, not especially, it stands out to me in family dynamics where there's like a black sheep. There's a kind of like the quote unquote black sheep of the family. There's this dynamic where they want this person to stop doing this negative behavior, but there's not a path for the person to get right with the family. So it's almost like the family dynamic needs the person to act out for it to function. And if they were to actually clean it up and become the white sheep or whatever, how you want to say that, then the family dynamic breaks down. And giving people a path to get back with you or get back to the relationship is really critical. And a lot of times people feel like when they've been wronged or the other person has broken trust, that it's on the other person to make it right. But if there's not a path for them to go, that's when you find often when people are like, screw this, I'm not even gonna try. I'm not even gonna, whenever I try to do something, I feel like I can't even get there. And then, when you define recovery, a lot of the terms you use to define recovery are like restore or reclaim or to defend. And so I think kind of talking about what that means to you, if somebody has, taken something from you, or you feel like you've been betrayed, or that, there's some difference there. What that leads into, and kind of the way I've been bringing this up with clients and groups this week, is focusing on forgiveness. And there's some different types of forgiveness. And so part of the discussion here is, what does a pardon mean? What does leniency mean? And what does release? Because sometimes we get caught in thinking that somebody's asking for this type of forgiveness, but we're not clear on what that means. We think it maybe they're asking for a pardon when what is really needed is leniency. Or maybe you can't ever go and meet that person that offended you. Well, then you can't pardon them because they're not around, but you could release it. So that's some ideas on forgiveness I wanted to bring up. Grudges, when you understand grudges, it's really useful. Grudges are something we use to protect ourselves, and they have a lot of value, especially when we're younger. If they stay, or if we continue to hold on to the grudges, what it does is protects your heart. And how it does that is actually hardens your heart. You find that you're less vulnerable, you don't trust as much, you don't reach out as much. And when your heart is hardened, yes, it's protected, but it also can't connect or feel or grow or heal as well. So that's where, some of that regrets or resentments, or, what is the purpose of a grudge and when is the time to let it go or release it? And then where that kind of leads us, is talking about, okay, if we want to restore or rebuild trust, how do we do that? Like, what is the you do this and you do that and you do the other and you do the other. And there's some process here we can talk about, kind of the actual. I've learned, especially in some of the earlier recovery groups, people don't know how to say sorry. Like, they don't know how to say sorry. They don't know how to go, like, acknowledging what you did, understanding what the problem was, seeking to make amends, and then never doing it again. Like, those 4 steps, they don't know it. So if there's some clarity or we can bring some on that, there's that. And then in our family, what I've learned in relationships that you want to work is if you can hold like a standard or almost like an ideal, like in our family, we don't lie, cheat, or steal. And they like you have that standard when somebody in the family does lie, cheat, and steal. Instead of making it about the person, you can make it about the standard. You can make it about, oh no, this is just what we do. And then what that does is it puts you and the other person side by side instead of always like this. You need to be better. Well, you shouldn't steal. You don't do, that's wrong. Instead of saying, oh no, man, we don't steal, cheat, or lie in this house. So help me understand where you're coming from. What does that mean? Now we gotta get you back up to what we do. And so when you can say like, here's the standard we live up to and point towards that, then you get side by side and you're both on a common aim and you're more focused on the problem and solving that than each other and your weaknesses or deficiencies or mistakes. And then I want to give you guys the example of the standard that we have in my family. So in my family, we have this hang up in our house. We reference it all often. So these are like our motto and our standard. And so when I'm not working hard or my kids aren't being honest, we point to this and say, "Oh no, we're just grateful, honest, and creative." So that's what we got to get to. How do we get there? And it keeps us reminding, and especially with I've noticed with my spouse, when we are being disrespectful to each other or not talking kindly, we can go back to the standard and be like, oh no, we're respectful and kind. I need you to do better. And when they say, well, you're talking mean to me, like, oh, okay, we can both call ourselves out without it becoming hypocritical or without it could becoming like, that tit for tat of like, well, you need to do this. Well, you need to do that. Well, you don't do this. Well, you don't do the other. And so it keeps that dynamic at bay. And we just like, oh, that's our standard. That's what we live up to. And so it really gives you like this backdrop to rise up to or to live into or to come back to instead of kind of going like this conflict. Are you lying to me or are you being honest or whatever? So those are kind of that's kind of a headline view of a lot of topics. It was a lot real fast, but in fact, Mr. Ross, what is there anything of those topics you kind of want to dive in deeper or focus more on or kind of spark some interest from you?
Kind of all the above. Like we're kind of in that, like this. It's crazy how things kind of work out because this is kind of exactly where we're at right now. And I'm finding like as excited as I was to have her home, I'm terrified to have her home at the same time. And so, and it's because like the trust just isn't there right now. Like, yeah. So it's kind of just all the above. Like this one, it's like, I don't know, like, yeah, does she trust me that like I want things for the better too?
Okay. Well, we'll definitely and we'll talk about like then grudges because as far as things that you're here for you and great if your family benefits and your life benefits, that's the idea, that's the the goal or the aim. But if we can talk about maybe grudges and how that shows up for you, that might help you understand how you can show up in a different way to get a different result and still be in your control and not have to worry so much about what the other person's going to do.
The forgiveness and the grudges, do you think it's important to uh like let our loved one know, hey, this is what I was feeling, but I have forgiven you? Or do you think that's something that we just do internally rather than bring up, hey, this is what you did and I felt bad about that and I had anger and I'm holding a grudge, but I'm forgiving you? Like, is it important to tell them that, or is that just something internally that I say, okay, I've understood now more about the disease and I get it, and I do forgive my loved one?
That's a good question. What do you think?
I kind of lean towards not uh, verbally uh, telling her that, because I think that that would maybe have the tendency of making her feel worse or bringing back these thoughts of, oh, well, and then maybe even leading to some kind of argument. Well, I didn't do that or whatever.
Do you
You know,
find
that's
the difficulty
I
of the
don't know.
conversation that is challenging, or what needs to be said and understanding what needs to be communicated or conveyed?
that's kind of exactly what I'm going through right now is uh I want to express how I feel, but I'm terrified that it's gonna send her through a tailspin. Like the stress, her stress level is just gonna go up through the roof, and maybe she can't handle that. What I would like to say at this moment, kind of thing. Maybe in a a little bit of time and in a safe area, yes, in a safe space. But right now, that's yeah, and so I just gotta have to take things kind of slow. But that's exactly where I'm at. Like, how do I express, you know, some of the hurt, some of the feelings without, so I can release this grudge.
Well, and do you find then and maybe Ms. Brown can highlight this, is you get that catch-22 feeling that it needs to be said and it needs to be resolved, but I'm waiting for the right time to do it. But the right time seems to be just out in the future. And the more, we go into the future, the further it kind of gets pushed out. And the catch-22, it feels like, is so much we're not ever getting there. And I'm waiting for that right time. And then since the right time doesn't seem to come when I need it, it happens at like the wrong time, like the explosion or the harsh words, or the a reactionary state instead of more intentional and deliberate as well. Do you feel like that is kind of a catch-22 you run into?
Yeah, total. That's exactly damned if I do, damned if I don't kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Which is a super SIHITTY place to live, for
Yeah,
sure. Because then it wrecks your nervous system, it wrecks your health, it wrecks your ability, not the other person more often than not.
yeah.
Yes, I have so many thoughts, but one that comes to mind is one of the past topics we discussed was called the messy middle, I believe.
Mm.
Um, that one we discussed so many awesome things about how to kind of like maybe what things from their perspective and what our perspective is and how we meet in the middle. I took just a screenshot of one of the slides that Jared had in that group meeting. I don't know what to call it necessarily, that I loved. And it was kind of like what they expect when they come back. Like they want us to just like trust them instantly. But what we want is to give them history lessons, to show them and be like, do you know what you did? Oh, remember you did this and this and this. And we don't want to cause them harm, but we've been in so much pain. It's like, well, now is the time to discuss. But it had a third column, and I'll email it to you, John and Lou and Nita, and but I would encourage you to go back and watch this group. It was fantastic for this type of situation. But it's kind of like a willingness. For me in my situation, when my friend called it history lessons, because I'd say, oh, well, I can't trust you because of this. Like in the past, I thought I was being nice, and I'd say, well, in the past, when you said you were going to the store, it wasn't necessarily just the store or whatever example it was. But that was me pointing out things in the past that they did wrong. So it was me trying to meet them in the middle and saying it different to where I mean, because I didn't know how to trust and I didn't know what that looked like, but it was communication. And I'd love it if you'd go to the store for me. These are the things I need. And then one thing that was pointed out in an earlier meeting was about trust. And I'm going to look it up because these meetings are super awesome that we can go back and do. Someone had stated that trust is reliability, trust is truth, trust is ability, trust is strength. And for me, I felt like trust was just truth. I'm like, if I feel truth, then maybe I'll start to trust you. But reliability was a big one. If he went to the store and did what I asked and came back, I wanted to be aware and say, oh, okay, I could trust you to do that one thing. Okay, we're slowly getting there. So pointing it out and looking at, I liked that slide. What does trust mean to you and for you? because I just felt like it was truth, but there's so many other things it can be. And then I could acknowledge where we were slowly taking baby steps towards trust. And it didn't just have to be like, all right, you're back. Let's just forget everything and move forward.
Yeah, because then we feel like we got to get to this pardon place where we're like wiping the slate clean and it's all good because we feel like we've got to do that to move forward, which means we're swallowing a ton of grudges and resentments and hoping that in the future that gets resolved. We're willing to do that short term and swallow it and eat it with the understanding that it will get, it'll come up and in a therapeutic way or healthy way get resolved and taken care of. When what we probably need is to, some leniency or release that we can do on our end, or anyway, yeah, I think that's really great that you added that color. Can you repeat that definition of trust that you read? I think that when you're asking what that means for you was on point.
Trust, I wrote down reliability, truth, ability, and strength. So for me, trust, I was like, nope, unless he's telling the truth, I'm not going to trust him. But I started, it helped when I noticed he's being reliable. He's available. He's helping in different ways instead of just truth.
Excellent. Ania, did you have any other can you color Alu's comments at all? Is that is that how you kind of feel about the situation too, or is there something you could add there?
The hard part is just being able to get over is the honesty part of it. Because it was so many years or so many times of being dishonest and having to be dishonest. And so that's going to be the hard part for me anyways.
Okay. Why don't we talk about a practical thing, two things actually. One, I got this from Matt Townsend. I don't know if you've heard of Matt Townsend before. He is counseling. He's written some books and done relationship coaching and stuff. And one thing I really loved that I got from him was don't let the retard dictate the relationship, or don't let the unhealthy person dictate the relationship. I.e., the person who just got out of recovery and just came home from reprieve does not dictate how this relationship runs. The healthy person does. So when you can start like saying, "Oh, this is how we do things here," and if they try and like come back like, "Well, you need to be more understanding," or whatever, and like, "Yeah, okay, but I'm the one." So we don't make decisions based off trying to not inconvenience the unhealthy one. We do things that protect our needs and our boundaries because we're the healthy one at this point, or are striving to be, or improve, or do better. So part of that is like we don't let the person who can't take criticism and feedback dictate how we show up here. We like I do. If I'm the healthy one, or if you're the one that has the integrity, that's where you start. So first of all, you're doing it from your perspective. You're the one that dictates the terms. Um, Number two, I'll get there in a minute. So make sure that the healthy one is the one who's dictating the terms there. And something I heard and everyone's kind of comments too was part of grudge work and forgiveness work is boundary work. And if you don't know how a simple way to define what boundary work is, what boundary work really is protecting your YOUR, everyone on this call, your needs. So that becomes the priority, not the other person's feelings or perceived feelings. One other thing about the people when they you want to go to the history lesson that you're talking about is people who drink or do drugs or act out, guess what? They're not going to remember or even be aware or available to try to understand how they hurt you. Because when you're drunk, you don't remember. And if it's not in your body, you can't go back and say, oh, yeah, I was really an a-hole to you, or I was really, man, what I said there, I would never say those things if I was sober. And I'm so sorry because it's not in them. So part of forgiveness, part of the releasing, maybe Lou, that you were talking about too, is there's some things you ain't gonna get a sorry for. Not because maybe they don't want to, but if the person was using or was unavailable in their body, it's not in them. They can't go in and say, "Oh, yeah, I remember that," because they can't. They can't feel it. So part of those things will be releasing, but part of it also, I think, is your willingness to ask that your needs be respected puts you in a place to also be a respecter of other person's needs better as well.
So I've come to understand that our loved one is not capable of the, understanding the depths of the pain that we have experienced. But I guess I'm wondering if I were to sit down with her and say, this is, how I feel, and I'm forgiving you, if that's more leading with love that would be helpful for her, or is that more like a history lesson, like that would be more damaging than helpful? And maybe it's me thinking about her and what she needs, and what you're saying is I need to maybe focus on our well-being rather than so much how she feels. I don't know. There's a lot of confusion there.
I think that leading with love will look different. I think there's a time and place. I think acceptance, and maybe just the energy you give off and the love that way is different, where you can say, we don't know what this will look like. Actually, I'm going to go back to the standard. This, I think, Shay, that standard that you had, the triangle, I think could really be so helpful in this scenario. And with John, and you guys can get together and say, you know what, we want to know what's like, we want to work as a team. I don't know what recovery looks like for you. I don't know how our life looks like for me. Everything's new. So why don't we sit down and we make a standard for us? Like, so that it's not me against you, that we're working together as a team, and it can be like trust. We expect trust. And same with you, Lou and Nita. It can be something that you guys can have ideas on what you think you would like to have with your relationship, but also I would include her and just say, what are your thoughts? Like, these are some of the ideas we came up with. What are your thoughts for our standard, our family standard, so that we can support you how you would like to be supported, but you are also understanding how we need support as we're all navigating these new feelings. We know there's no trust for you to trust us or us to trust you. So let's work together and navigate it. And what does that look like? I think the standard would really open that conversation. I would probably, for me, past experience, history lessons really just hurt me more than anything. When I brought things up to him, it was better for me to talk like I had a therapist, or talk about it in group, or go to an Al-Anon meeting and say, these are the things I'm really struggling with, because I kind of just needed to get out the feeling, like the emotion with it. And then I could go back to him and say, okay, there's a lot of things that hurt that I'm trying to work through, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Does that, any of that kind of make sense?
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. Can I ask a different question, since I have all of your knowledge to draw from and it's very helpful? Could it be like one of the things we're struggling with now, as our daughter is going to be coming back out of recovery next week, is it we want a standard to be that she now go into outpatient treatment, and she at times has been receptive to that, but I'm not sure if she's just kind of saying that, and then once she gets back home says, well, I'm better now, I don't need that. If that should be kind of a hard boundary, or is that something that we sort of be flexible about?
In my opinion, it would be talking to, I mean, they usually have a plan from the therapist before they leave. And so it can be vocalizing like, okay, what's the plan? Like, what's the game plan from this point? How do you feel about that? This is how we feel. We think it's really important. And then if she doesn't, that's where you guys need support. You can't control her. You can't make her want to do it. And that's the hard part. And so if it is in my situation, if he decided not to do any kind of recovery afterwards, I I turn to my support group, my family group. You guys can reach out to us anytime. I went to other meetings where I had to learn I can't control her, but I can have peace. And I need to figure out how to not be worried about what, well, she should go to IOP, just because I can't read minds. I don't know what he was feeling, but I think communicating, like, this is how we're feeling. This adds some fear and anxiety to us because we want to give you the support you need, but we're not professionals. And at
So-
IOP, they know, and that seems like good support, but what do you think? Because she's either going to feel like she's being forced into it and not get any help, or I mean, so it comes down to you guys thinking about it, taking it to your higher power, taking it to talking to other people. Just what do you want? Do you want to support her in how it looks for you? Do you want to support her in how it looks for her? I think it's amazing to have a standard and say, okay, we want to come together. What does it look like for you? What does it look like for us? How can we meet in the middle?
So would you say it's more of a ultimatum rather than a boundary? If we were to say, okay, well, but if you don't go to outpatient, then you can't live with us. Like, is that,
Is that
Is-
is that a deal breaker for you guys?
well, I
We
don't
don't
know.
know.
We don't know.
Okay.
We're struggling with the, balancing all this where we're trying to help her and want to
What's
lead
the
with
age
love.
range? What's her age range?
24.
Okay, and she lives with you?
Yes.
As you guys are talking, a very useful like adage is show me, don't tell me. So if you got to rebuild trust, that happens in the doing and not the telling. You could say, hey, we feel that you need like more is needed and IOP is the next step. We don't just say that. Counselors, it's like like it's a good thing. So what we need to see is, well, like what do you need to see? Like what do you need to see from your amazing, wonderful, maybe knucklehead, hard to be around daughter who you want to have a good relationship with? What do you need? What would she need to show you to like foster a good relationship and continue to live under your house in your house?
Yeah.
No.
I guess we'll have to just sort of see how it goes. I mean, I we suspect that she's gonna come back and think I'm cured. I'm good now, you know.
Great.
Whereas
Then you ask her like, how can you show us that then? So and then you guys can like I think kind of what she was saying is like, okay, here's the standard. Guess what? We're never gonna call you from jail and ask you to bail us out. So we expect the same from you. You know what? The lights are always gonna be on and the there's always gonna be food in the fridge. We expect you to contribute as well. And so you can start saying like, hey, what is the standard if we're gonna live together, we're gonna let you live here. Here's what we can all agree on is what's expected and revisit that in a way where you're collaborating and just say when she says, well, I'll do this, whatever, okay, show me, don't tell me, get the job. Then, and if you can just say like, show me, don't tell me, just show me and start putting that onus on the activity and say, I'll help you. Or maybe you just say, these resources you have access to. There's food in the fridge, the lights are on, hot water, and you can stay home on all day Saturday and sleep in or whatever. But the resource you don't have is you can't use the car, can't use the bank account, can't use the credit card, and you get 5 hours a week from us to help you with something. So I think, and here's some real talk, okay, Lou? If you guys wait to find out, you will be in the same situation you were before. This is your time to write it one page, write down, this is what has to be different going forward for us. And you start letting those be that you just communicate, these is what we have to see. Now, I don't know how we get there. Maybe we can collaborate. I don't know how workable she is, but if you wait to decide what the expectations are before she gets back, then you're letting the unhealthy person dictate how the relationship goes. It's where you guys can clarify, and if you haven't like clarified, like, oh, these are the rules of the house, and these are just consequences, and then now's the time. Because if you don't, in 3 months or 2 months or 6 months, you'll be in the same kind of icky place of like, well, we kind of, and it should have, and we're trying, and it's hard, and not going to be, it's not going to be easy to follow through and create a standard because it'll be muddled. So the more you can just say, here's what we need. Here's what we need. You're 24. You're a grown woman. This is what we need as your parents to support and continue to do this. And see what comes up. But I think the more clear you can get on that is really what's at stake. It's not on her, it's on you.
So we had actually talked about writing down some things this weekend before she comes back, and all of your comments are very helpful. The tricky part, I guess, for us is she's, she would say, just anticipating, well, I don't, I can't live with that, so I'm just going to go live with my friend, and then, from there, uh, that's not going to be a helpful situation for her in her recovery. And maybe that's something that we shouldn't be too concerned about as much as, hey, these are the rules we need for our house. And if that's your decision, then so be it.
I think, my son, he was in 7th grade last year, and he was trying to tell me he was getting bullied at school. I think I told this story before, but he was getting bullied in school, and I said, "No, no, you're tough. You can take care of it. You can stand up for yourself." And it just wasn't landing. I was trying to encourage her or support him, and it was just like I was getting more pushback. And when I was able to get present to what he needed me to validate that he is a wimp. I said, "Oh, you feel like you're weak and wimpy." He's like, "Yes, Dad. Finally. Thank you. I can't do it." And when I validated that he was what he was feeling or where he was at, then we got a common place to start from. And so we said a little earlier about, I need to tell her that I need to, I'm forgiving her, or, I need these things. In that 7 habits for 7 people, right? Seek first to understand is maybe like say, hey, um, what like I need some things. What do you need from now going forward too? And when you ask what she needs, you'll be able to say, good, because what I need is we got to restore some trust. We've got to have some boundaries. Like there's rules. You have to show us that you are changing by doing what we ask you to do. And so I think if you can kind of not come across as a way of like, I'm trying to tell you what you need to do, but more like, hey, your life's probably not where you want it to be at 24, is it? Cool. Like, we can help and we want to help and we care about you. But this is what we need you to show us, not tell us what to do. And this is what it looks like. Here's the rules. Here's what we expect. Let's get a crack at this. And the real game changer, if you're open to it, is if you can just put your hand on her forearm or on her thigh when you're talking and just say, hey, you really crossed some boundaries. You really broke some trust. It's really hard to work through this with you. And I'm working and you're working, but I need you to understand that you will need to make things right with me eventually. And that expectation is out there, and not like it has to happen now, but hey, you need to know that I am willing to let you live your life. If that means you're out of here in a month, that's what it means. But I'm willing to let you live your life because I love you way too much to go back to where we came from. And that can go back kind of that standard conversation.
I love
Thank
that.
you.
I love how you worded it, because it takes it to, yeah, you did a lot of damage. Like, we don't want to go back to that life, but without getting into detail. You can just let her know, like, we're trying to figure out how to trust and to work together. Yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah. Trying to navigate this new way of handling things, of giving them that benefit of the doubt, like, hey, I'm going to the store. I need to get whatever. And I think we talked about this last time I was logged into the meeting a couple weeks ago, where it's like, are you really? You
Yeah, I remember that.
You have that internal clock. Okay, grocery store's 10, 15 minutes away. It's here, like your mind starts racing, and it's like, okay, what if she ran into somebody, or what if they ran into somebody at the store? They, you know how people just chat at the grocery store, or worst case scenario, what if they went to the bar? Like that's the hard part, like that trust of like how to release that like anxiety of like, how do I trust myself in a way too? It's like, because I know where I'm at, and I just don't want to go back down that path of hurt anymore. Like I want to be able to trust myself, like I'm okay, but like, am I really okay, kind of thing? Are my kids okay? It like, that's, yeah.
Well,
No, I love how you said
let's
that.
talk about what a
Sometimes like
grudge is.
that little touch, like how you said it, that touch, sometimes it's a tender, like that tender touch. Like it's that emotional, like, hey, like I'm here. We're here as a family for you. You have our support, but show us, yeah, show us, don't tell us, kind of thing. I love that. I love that kind of thing.
It freaking works. Just when my 15-year-old wants phone time or whatever, and he's like, I've done my stuff, I just say, show me, don't tell me, man. Show it to me. And it goes right, it cuts right to it. Because anyway, um, the other thing about touch that maybe is helpful to understand is, if your person is coming out of a recovery place, they've been an inpatient or even at IOP, and they're struggling to regulate, so they're not regulating their emotions well. When you reach out and that tender touch, and you hold it for 30 seconds, then 90 seconds, then 2.5 3 minutes, you actually co-regulate. And when you co-regulate, since you guys are the healthy people, the unhealthy person actually will sync up, and you'll actually find that you're now co-regulating, and you get that feeling of like 1 + 1 = 7. And if they can tap into your energy and you're co-regulating, their breath kind of syncs up, and then it fosters perfectly this feeling of like, we're walking the path together. I can't do it for you, and I won't do it for you, but I'm walking my path in my life, and I'm right beside you, and I'm ready to figure it out and do it and find a way. I'm willing to change, and I hope you are too. And I'm gonna go, and you can come, but it's okay if you don't. I don't care about you less. We just won't be on the same path. And so if you can extend that touch for 2 or 3 minutes and co-regulate, it's really, really powerful. And then you're saying more with less. Because also a lot of this is less is more often too. Is instead of trying to like bombard them with stuff, is like, hey, today, if you're gonna go to the store, what I need is for you to come right back. That's what I need. I need you to start showing me that you're doing what you say you're gonna do. Because I do that for you, and that's what I expect from you too. Um,
That's it. That's interesting. Like the whole touch thing, like through this whole process, my daughter's at home, like, a daily, nightly kind of thing, just check in with them. How you doing? And they have their walls put up, and they're like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And you can see it, like you almost see it in their face. And like I almost had to just grab them and just hug. Like I had to like force the hug and just let them just, and then all of a sudden, like it's almost like these ice baths, like that first minute, like once you relax enough, it like your body just like gives in, and you do sink, like you do, like, and then all of a sudden just the flood of emotions just come out. It's almost like it's that safety net. Like they have to know that what they're saying is they're safe, kind of thing.
and what better way to convey that than healthy touch?
Mm-hmm.
And I have really big energy. So sometimes my big energy kind of feels like it's dominant to like my kids. So what I found is I often will ask to be invited in. I'll be like, hey, can I give you a hug right now? And it's okay to say no, but can I hold you for a minute? And when it comes from an invite, then my big energy blesses them. But when I kind of try and like do it, I'll often get the pushback because that's just how it is.
Yeah.
And the ritual I have around that is most nights I do massages for my kids. And so that's the way we just have a ritual. Like, hey, can I have a massage, Dad? Yep. And we're doing our thing. And I'll just rub shoulders, rub feet, can I do it? And we've got a ritual around it now, which makes that now part of our thing. And it really, especially for young adults, that creating a place where they can just let it down, man, it's powerful. And who's gonna want to move out of a house, Lou, if when they come, their mom and dad are willing to like just embrace them while they're trying to like they're a porcupine. We're not gonna hug you if you're a porcupine, but you let the quills down. Hey, we'll hug you and we'll figure it out. And the desire to bolt, don't ever underestimate that, but it'll be offset with the desire to always come home.
It's very helpful. Thank you all for sharing all that. It's pretty powerful stuff.
When we pick up when I do this again, I'll just pick up right here on the grudges part because I think there's some value there. What grudges are, how they come from the resentments, and how they protect our hearts. They're there to protect us. We all have grudges. If we live with somebody who's breaking our trust and is hurting us, then grudges are very useful. But to then soften up and how we do that, I think that'd be a great one for a next class if you guys are down with it.
Yeah.
Any takeaways, guys, from today? In fact, I left this picture with 2 takeaways, with 2 trees. So do you guys have 1 or 2 takeaways from the class tonight? John, you want to go? Any takeaways? 1 or 2?
To be honest, at the start, I thought like the darker tree could have been the person with the addiction that's fighting it right now, but I'm finding that's probably me right now. Like I'm hanging on. I have my walls up. I have my grudge wall blocking that sunlight, even though it's coming from the exact same angle, that higher power, everything. But maybe I'm hanging on a little bit harder than I need to. I need to kind of let go a little bit.
Powerful. Lou, Anita, do you have 1 or 2 takeaways from today?
I don't know. I still see, looking at the trees, I still see hope. But we're getting closer and closer to a transition phase, kind of to closer to where John is now, and maybe just anxious about the next phase and not wanting to make mistakes like we did in past years, and just wanting to do things right, but
And
still
differently.
but still hopeful.
Yay. Susan?
Takeaways from today. I love show us, don't tell us. And then I love the opportunity of standard. I love that you guys have a chance to just communicate, like figure out what is important to you, and then allow your loved one to come in and say, okay, this is what I feel like is important for our house and for our family. What are your thoughts? What would you like to add? What do you want to move towards? And then it doesn't matter what perspective we're in. If we can support that way, that leads with love. That shows support. That shows we care because we want their input. But then it helps set boundaries with, well, we don't do honesty in this house. We don't do honesty. Wrong. So I just think there's so much from all of these, and I'll go back through and look at the slides and write them down. I just think we have a chance. And one thing I learned to say quickly was I was just doing the best I could. Like, obviously that wasn't working. but it was the only way I knew how. So let's work together. Like, what does the future look like for you? The standards help tie the expectations in. And I learned to say, I know I didn't handle that correctly, but I want to change. I want to grow. I want to move forward and lead with love. I want to be able to support you in the way that you would like, and meet in the middle, type of thing.
Can I
Shay, it's been,
can I
thank
button
you,
hook real
all of
quick?
us.
Two things on there. One, on that last point that she made, is with my coaching clients, I'll often let them know something I'm working on as well. And when I let them see something I'm working on, that creates this mutual, like, oh, we're both on the path and we don't ever arrive. And that might be a creative idea to play around with, is to let your daughter know, like, hey, you know what, you're working on that, I'm working on this, or is there something I can work on? And if you let her see that you're making changes too, that seems to create a culture of like, oh, we're doing different here. So it could be something small. It doesn't have to be anything big or anything, but something small. And then number two is, in the Secrets of Happy Families by Bruce Feiler, one of the core values of a healthy, happy family is play. So that might be a way to kind of break down some of the initial like uncertainty, is we are gonna play. I don't know what that looks like for you, but we're gonna go do things that are play. And that creates all sorts of opportunities to talk side by side instead of across the table. And when you're playing, some of that guard comes down, and then it softens some of the hard work that needs to be done, and it makes it a little bit more creative. So maybe add that to your mix of like, hey, we are gonna do something. We're gonna play. We're gonna incorporate that. It's the hardest stinking thing to do when somebody's hurt you, is try and go play with them. So I'm not making light of it. However, if you're willing to attempt to go there, it creates all sorts of creative opportunity that wasn't there before. So it definitely is courageous work, but it's the way, man. It has made a big difference for us and our family. So,
And I like the idea too of saying, rather than, you did these things wrong. Well, we both did things wrong before, and just kind of leave it at that, and segue into what does it look like going forward that we can both do differently, rather than focus just on what she did wrong.
do you want to coach's thought on that real quick, Lou?
Yes, please.
You need to ask, and not, you guys are not even. You're not equal. You're not, don't bring it down to like their level and be like, hey, you were in recovery, I need to do stuff too. No, you didn't get in the hospital. You didn't break trust. That was not you. You can say like, hey, I'm willing to do what I change where I needed to change, but I think you asking for what you need is maybe a piece of work that you is coming up for you, that if that feels like a courageous thing to do, I think that would be the place to lean into, is at you clearly state what you need, and then encourage and lift your, because you got to keep the high ground, because the standard is up here. We're lifting each other up to the standard. It's not like, let me make myself lower so then we both look up. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay. So just my 2 cents on there. Some options.
I appreciate that. It's helpful.
100%. Great. Thank you so much for taking time out to meet up with us tonight and connect and find ways to win together. I really am appreciative and grateful and love preparing and doing these classes. So thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks all of you.